right, so good morning, Miss Black.
Good morning, Miss Jim. How you doing?
Pretty good. How about you?
Good.
Good. All right, so we're going to jump right in with our Are You Ready meeting.
Okay.
Remember this year our math priority is around
Check for understanding.
Check for understanding. So today we're really going to zoom into that as we go through your Are You Ready meeting. Okay? So I want you to start me off. Talk to me about what lesson you're on and the standard.
All right. The standard is 6EEA 3, and the lesson is lesson 4.
Okay.
It's on the relationship of addition and subtraction, basically expressions.
Okay. So what did you notice about the standard in particular?
I noticed that it was more of a conceptual idea, and with just a little bit of procedure.
Okay. So as you walk through this lesson, and you mentioned the parts about the aspect of rigor here, did this lesson fully meet the demand of the standard? Or was it just parts?
I think it was part.
Okay. Part. So here's our standard, and then you can take a moment to actually just zoom into that really quick.
Okay.
Look at the standard. I want you to talk to me about what parts actually exist within this lesson. This is our full standard. What part are we actually doing?
I think we're looking at properties or equivalent expressions. Trying to look at equivalent expressions. It says to apply the property of operation to generate equivalent expressions, and if we're looking at relationships between addition and subtraction, we're going to look at the identity, and that's going to help us with the equivalent expressions.
Exactly. So we're definitely applying the properties of operations, and then we are generating those equivalent expressions. So I think you nailed it. So, yeah. So let's move right along. So now I want you to talk to me about the big idea of this lesson, and then lead me into the check for understanding questions that you've selected based off of that.
I think the big idea of this is to look at the basic identity of students understanding adding and subtracting together, and just the relationship, the identity. I forgot the name. I forgot. But yeah, the identity of addition and subtraction. We'll say that. Okay. And my check for understanding, the first one is question 2, where we are going to, the question asks them to build a tape diagram with 10 squares. And then A asks them to...
You said question number 2?
Number 2 on the exercises.
Okay.
A asks them, they're going to be removing squares and then also writing an expression. A says to remove 6 squares and write an expression to represent that tape diagram. So I kind of scribbled out the 6 squares. I did 10 and then scribbled out 6. And then physically, mentally, I was like, oh, I had 10 and subtracted 6. And then for B, it asks you to add the 6 squares back to the tape diagram. Well, it says add 6 squares onto the tape diagram. So I did that, and I made sure that I kind of bolded it so I could physically see. And there's just one thing I try to work with my kids so they can physically see, because when you're just writing, you're just like, oh, I got 10. Yeah. So that they can see, oh, I started with 10, I subtracted 6, and I added 6.
Okay.
And
so what information do you want kids to get from this?
The writing the expression and how to use a tape diagram to write an expression.
Okay. Is that essential for the actual exit ticket for today?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
Okay, let's take a look at the exit ticket for today, so that we can make sure that this is an appropriate question that's selected. Okay. All right, so looking at the exit ticket, question number 1 asks us to draw a tape diagram to represent each of the following number sentences. Okay, so here you're pushing kids to actually draw the tape diagram based off of this expression that they're given.
Yes.
So they're actually having to generate.
Yeah.
Okay. Generating the expressions here, and then they're making a tape diagram.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so that is one essential part. So we're going to keep going through these to see if this is the best question that we should use to check for understanding, or if there's one that's more aligned to the exit ticket.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you want me to go to my second question? Okay, so my second question is from the exercise, and it's number 4.
Okay.
And it's to me, it's kind of the basic identity, just having the kids identify what number they are actually either adding or subtracting to go back to their start.
Okay.
And I think one of the things was that the relationship is when you add something and then subtract something, you are back where you started. So I selected this. I looked at question 5 because it had variables, and I know we're introduced to or where I have introduced variables. So I almost wanted to do that one, but I picked this one kind of as a safe choice.
Which one is that?
Number 4. I looked at number 5. Number 5.
4D. 4D.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so you said you picked that one as a safe choice. Let's look at the exit ticket. Okay. So on the exit ticket, they have problems that push students to, fill in the blank with numbers and with variables. So what might be one misconception that students have if they don't experience the problem using the variables?
I think just dealing with them, they're going to try to make that, because I talked variables earlier, they're going to try to make that blank a number.
Okay.
Just one of the misconceptions before is trying to ignoring that K is at the end and it's on the end of the equation, and they're gonna be like, oh, 5, I can make up 5.
Yeah.
And try to make up a number as opposed to putting a variable.
Right. So what can we do to avoid that, knowing that this might be a misconception that our kids come with? What can we do to avoid this ahead of time?
Just making sure they have an understanding of variables and how they are numbers and treating them as numbers. Also, maybe changing my check for understanding to maybe include one 4A and then maybe 5A or 5B.
Yeah,
just one of each.
Yeah, I definitely noted that myself. For you to push scholars to definitely do one with the numbers and then one with variables, so that they can experience and see that, oh, this variable I treat it the same way that I treat the number,
Right.
and so that they have an understanding of that, and you can see which scholars struggle with kids that are just using variables as far as these equations are concerned, or if kids that can do numbers do that well and they struggle with the variable piece, and you'll know as far as small group, I need to work with them on this piece.
Okay, I understand. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
One way that you could tie this part in, I know it doesn't push the kids to actually do a tape diagram, but on the exit ticket, question 1A and B gives them that they start them out with the entire equation and they want them to use a tape diagram with it. You could actually push them here to make a tape diagram that represents, this equation.
Okay, so they can actually see what they.
Yeah. So even when you do it with the variables, you can always push them to say, okay, they only want you to fill in the blank here, but I'm going to push you to actually build out the tape diagram.
Okay.
You want to pay attention to how big the numbers are, though, because this one says 65 plus blank minus 15 equals 65, so that would be a lot of squares. But in opportunities where you can actually do this, I would say go for it.
Or maybe, do you think here we can use a bar diagram?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah.
Since it's such a big number, so they don't spend most of the time drawing squares.
Right.
We can just say, oh, I got 65 for.
Yeah. One other good example opportunity for check for understanding. Look at number 3. Talk to me about where you feel like this could possibly land, or if this would be a good check for understanding opportunity to you.
Yeah, I actually did look at number 3, because
Is that the one with the bar?
Oh no, I'm looking at exercise. Okay.
It's a 3 up at the top.
Okay. All right. I'm looking for this as a check for understanding. I think kind of just what I was just talking about doing the bar diagram for the letters and students not wanting to make the variables numbers.
Yeah.
And I think this would be a good way for them to, or for me to check if they actually understand that these are variables that can mean numbers but not necessarily numbers.
Right.
It can help with that where they want to put a number in.
Yeah.
What we was talking about with the G plus, oh, I'm putting in 5. I just can make up my own number because it's a variable. And I think this would help me to identify if they actually understand variables.
Yeah.
And how to create tape diagrams.
All right. So what adjustments do you need to make to your tracker if you decide to go with that one? Do you think, so let's go back. So
Mhm.
we initially started with a problem where kids were using the tape diagram to develop out their expressions.
Mhm.
Okay, they're trying to show like this identity property here. If I add 6 and I take away 6, I'm going to be left with the same number
Right.
that I originally started with, but they're using a tape diagram with it. Do you think we get the most bang for our buck using this problem, or by using a problem that forces them to, start with the expression, build out your tape diagrams, and still see identity as well as this fill in the blank part? So,
I actually think that I may get more bang for my buck starting with the equation and then having them do the tape diagram like as an extension for some of these. This one may be a good, just kind of go over it in the lesson, making sure they understand an example. And then this one could actually see, because I'm going to use like one of the ones that have numbers and one that has variables. So I think maybe I could switch the number 2 to like 4A, then switch the question, my second question or my second check for understanding to 5C.
okay.
Yeah.
And definitely these don't require them to use tape diagrams, but you can still push it because we need them to show mastery on 1A and 1B.
Right.
Yep. And so by using these 2 questions, what do you expect to see as a result of that?
I expect kids to be able to understand basically the big idea, which is the relationship between subtraction and addition.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
And this is what her tracker actually looks like. Yours should be a little better. We just did this on the spot.
Don't judge the right.
So, talk to me about what your delivery of this would actually look like.
I know for me, just personally, I think it's more of making sure it's a redo. So I try to find a lot of redo, or just delivery of the questions, or
The check for understanding question.
okay.
So what are your teacher moves going to look like during the time where
There.
they're doing the check for understanding question?
I'm going to be walking around with the tracker, seeing who's on track, who's close to the answer. Because some kids work faster than others, so I try to hit them first because I know they're going to be closer to the data, so I can get because some kids can start off good, and then they get to maybe the expression or the tape diagram through their mouth, and then they're like, so I could put it on track, and then I actually go and look again, and it's like, wait, they forgot to add the 6.
Right.
So trying to make sure I move around and not just go past that student once, trying to do it twice.
Okay.
But I know it has to be a quick transition because I don't want to get in too long to be our test.
And so I know that initially we talked about you were going to circle the moments in your exemplar answer where kids actually made, the errors so that you could adjust.
And see misconceptions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm gonna come observe your class on Wednesday,
Okay.
and I'm gonna be looking for you to actually be using your tracker with the exemplars already there.
Okay.
I'm gonna specifically check in with you around our check for understanding question 4A and 4D, I believe, and that you have implemented that just as we discussed.
Okay.
You're monitoring, walking around, and you have labeled whether kids are on track with those examples or whether they're not on track.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
You feel confident, ready to go into the lesson, or do you need to talk about anything else?
No, I think I feel confident. I just want to make sure that, just with the variables, key in on that and make sure they're understanding it.
Yeah. Would you like to practice that part?
We can.
Okay.
All right.
So we'll use.
So I'm gonna start on okay, so basically I'm looking at what happens when we have a tape diagram.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What happens when we have a tape diagram? Can we create a tape diagram for any type of numbers? And how this works with any type of numbers? Can we write an equation using variables to represent what we just demonstrated on the tape diagram? Okay. So let's say we have a number or a variable W.
Mhm.
Okay. And I want to take away a number that I don't know. And we say X. Okay, how can I represent this on a tape diagram? Should I start there or maybe start with the bar diagram and then work away?
Yeah, I would definitely say they use a question here, and I would say use the question that they have provided,
Okay.
because kids at this point have just done this with numbers. Okay, so you can at this point they have seen numbers. So walk me through like one that I can use numbers with, and then walk me through, and then allow me to answer the question around like this variable piece that we're on now.
Okay. So after we have done the other one with the numbers, then have them.
So walk me through 6 plus 4, like how I could show that using a tape diagram. So 6 plus 4.
Okay.
And then I should have 6 units or each one of those.
Okay.
And then I should have an additional 4 more.
Maybe identifying these.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. And then having knowing to add 4 more.
Yeah. And then have the kids develop out the number sentence that you're looking for.
Okay.
So the actual
6 plus 4.
6
So
plus 4. What happened there? So you're asking a question around what do you notice happened?
Okay.
And then how can I develop a number sentence to represent that? They've been doing that since first grade.
Okay.
So they should be solid
So
on.
good on the writing the number sentence.
Right.
Okay. And then when I do variables, I can just.
And now you want to take them through the part with what happens when I remove 4.
Okay.
So you're asking the question, what happens when I remove 4?
Okay.
So then you can actually take off 4.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll be removing their 4 from their squares.
From their squares. Okay.
Yeah. All right. And then so what what happens to my number sentence at this point?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
2 minus 4. Yep. And so they're able to see the tape diagram with the answer of 6. And as you complete more of these, they'll start seeing that, oh, when I add a number and I take away that same number, I'm left with the original number that I started with, which is 6. So you have to finish it off with equals to 6.
Okay.
Yep. As they work more of those and you check, their understanding around this,
Okay.
then you're ready to push into those variables.
Okay.
Now walk me through the variable piece.
Okay. So I could say that I start with W. W the verb.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I start with W. But then what happens when I, let's say, add on variable X? Okay. Maybe similar to how we do that, adding on the 4. What expression can we create?
Yep. W plus X.
Okay. Is that what happened?
Yeah, we started with W and then we added this X box on.
Okay. Now, what happens when I take this away? What does my number sentence look like then?
And it looks like W plus. Okay, now just minus X.
Because that's all that I took away, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, what would be my answer to my expression? What am I left with? If I started here, added, and then subtracted X, what am I left with?
Looks like we're just left with the W.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so my only other push here is if you're showing this on the board, don't eliminate their initial tape diagram, like where you actually had it out. So like where you had that X right there, like draw the X back. And then I want you to actually draw underneath what you're taking away.
Okay.
Just so that kids actually
Draw
see.
like another box?
You can either draw like
Or just maybe do this.
do the part, yeah,
Okay.
so the kids can
To
see
see
like
that
what was there.
What was taken away.
Yeah.
Because we don't want them to be like, oh, you took away this little box.
Right.
Or wanting to create a number seal.
Right. And then showing them what it's equal to. You can even show them that part
Okay.
with the tape diagram. Like I'm just left with this W part in the end.
Because now I don't have this, so all I have is this variable.
Right.
Okay.
Just walking them through the steps, just like as if we were solving the equation all the way out, but you're solving it all the way out with the actual tape diagram.
Okay.
Yep. So I think like really work on like the questioning piece here
Okay.
as well.
And do
With the script, like internalize that part a little bit more. We have the questions that we're checking for understanding around. Really practice that even more after this, that piece, so that you are solid with what you're expecting of scholars.
Okay.
Yep. So in the final piece here, just make sure that you have gone through like fully worked out these steps, so that you know like even the tape diagram part with it, so that you can like circle
What
if kids have misconceptions around that piece. Yep.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.